Good morning. I hope everyone is doing well, and I'd like to welcome you all to the our Channel Islands Homeowners annual meeting. So we are going to get started here relatively soon. We have a number of speakers from the county and city. Some of them have some events going on, so they may come in and out, but hopefully we'll all have a chance to hear everything from them. So I'd like to welcome you and thanks for attending. I will give the first plea for, as you're all here, you're all paying your dues. We appreciate that. It really helps with the administrative cost. Unfortunately, things keep going up, but certainly talk to your neighbors and people who aren't here. And we do appreciate that $50. It is just a voluntary contribution, but it certainly helps keep the homeowner association moving. So I'd like to go ahead and get started. This is the agenda for today. We're fortunate to have some number of speakers. Michael Tripp from the Harbor Department, Nguyen, our city manager, Vianey Lopez. She will work her way in. She's got a prior meeting. Bert Perello as well has a prior meeting, but he'll be hopefully soon. Chuck Carter, one of our own, is going to talk to you about the water quality. We'll go through, after they speak, we'll go through some questions and answers. At that point, we'll close it off. Then we'll go ahead and talk about seawalls. At that point, Nguyen and Michael will talk a little bit more about seawalls. Once they finish, we'll do some question and answer, and then we'll go to just some financial business we need to take care of, and then hopefully we'll get you all out of here at a reasonable time. So we'll go ahead and start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mind standing and follow me. To the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, for liberty and justice. Thank you very much. So the first person I'd like to introduce is Michael Tripp. He's the new Channel Islands Harbor Director. Certainly we have seen some changes and improvements, and he's going to talk to you a little bit about the harbor. One thing I'd like to note as I was reviewing, getting ready for this, the 4th of July fireworks are back, so I really appreciate that. So looking forward to that. So with that, Michael Tripp.
Thank you, and good morning, everybody. Yeah, the 4th of July fireworks are coming back. My staff is dreading it, but I thought it was important enough to the harbor residents and businesses that it was something that we needed to take care of anyway. So I'm here to give you an update what's going on in the harbor. I'll start with something probably that's very important to all of you. The Hyatt House, former Casa Serena. That project is going to go ahead. Right now, what we're doing is a revetment project around Peninsula. The revetment's about 60 years old, so a lot of it was slopping off. And so what we need to do is fix that slope, put down something called filter fabric, which is going to keep that slope in place, and then put new rocks on it so that it'll be strengthened, it can last another 60 years. So we anticipate we're going to be done with that around June. And so once that project's done, the hotel can start going up. Another one I wanted to update you on was the Whale's Tail restaurant. We're currently in negotiations with a gentleman named Jonathan Zilli to get that restaurant going up again. He wants to continue calling it the Whale Tail. He has a nice history with that restaurant. He wishes it was still there, and so he's going to try to basically bring it back, but better. It's still going to be a seafood type restaurant, but he'd like to put a deck on top of it so you can go up there, have dinner, and watch the sunset. So we're negotiating with him right now. Our next up, we have an exclusive right to negotiate that expired in January, so we're just going to go back to the board and extend that another 3 months. Next up, something I'm sure everybody's wondering about is Fisherman's Wharf and what's going on with that. So basically, we did a request for proposals. We had 4 proposals that we went through a process. Evaluating it internally. We had a meeting back in September, where the public got to hear the 3 proposals. We evaluated them some more and selected a group called Carl's. And when we came out with that proposal, there was a lot of misconceptions about what exactly is being proposed there. And people thought, this is going to be like a Disneyland by the sea or something like that. And it's not what they had in mind at all. And basically what it is shops and restaurants, outdoor market where you can buy, fresh fruit, produce, and things of that nature. And so because we could see online all of this, misconceptions about, what was being proposed there, we decided to have some workshops. We held 12 of them. I think we had 130 people show up to those, and they actually went really well. It was an opportunity for people to come and, talk to the guy from Carl's, talk to me and ask, get their questions answered, get their concerns answered. And so that went really well. So the next thing that we'd like to do is to go before the Board of Supervisors and ask for an exclusive right to negotiate with them. Going on to some of the other projects, I mentioned the revetment already, that's well underway. The next thing that we would like to do is fix the Kitty Beach parking lot. It's in pretty rough shape, and so we'd like to make that one a little better. Eventually, we want to do a larger project for that, where we have some more lighting along the promenade there, and we reinforce some of the areas that are getting undermined by the water, basically. And also, right over next to that area, we have a surge wall that looks like it's about to fall down. So we want to get to work on that as well. We're going to see if we can get some grant funding on that for global warming resilience type things, because it is an old structure and the harbor is going to be here for a long time. So we need to improve it, not just replace it with what it is. Second to last, the dredging. So we just completed the dredging. They did 2.4 million cubic yards of dredging, taking that sand away from this harbor at the front, bringing it all the way down to the beach of Port Vianey, and protecting that beach and all that infrastructure over here. This was, I think, the largest dredging that we ever did, 2.4 million cubic yards. The goal was to do 2.5 million, but unfortunately that storm got in our way. It wasn't just days where they couldn't dredge because of bad weather. It was all the wood, all the junk, the tires that came and ended up on our beach. Basically, when that dredger was going into the dredge pond and trying to deal with what was in the water, it was coming up every half hour or so. They'd have to spend an hour pulling all the wood and garbage off of it. All that stuff ended up on our beach too. I'm sure you've noticed. So far, we've taken 30 large dumpsters of debris off of that beach, and I'm actually afraid to go look at what it looks like now, because I bet there's another 30 dumpsters that just got deposited. And so it's an issue we're trying to deal with. And I know we've got a water quality presentation coming up. And so, we'll hear about what's going on up in the northern part of the harbor too. But in our portion of the harbor, it was quite a mess. And so with that, the one other thing I wanted to mention was I was asked, as a possibility to have the Harbor Patrol start doing patrols in the northern part of the harbor again. I've heard there's some issues with people speeding and stuff like that. So I did talk to my staff about that to get an idea of what it would take and what kind of options we have. And unfortunately we can't do it with the staff that we have right now. It would require us to hire another supervisor and 2 more Harbor Patrol officers. Since the time that we were back there doing that, the harbor's changed a bit. When COVID came along, people started going to the outdoors more. And so we have a lot more people on the water. We have different people on the water. We have lots of stand-up paddle boards and stuff like that. And so we're pretty busy in this portion of the harbor. And in addition to that, we've taken over the parks and the parking lots here. And so that's more work for us. So, unfortunately, at this time, we don't have the staff to go up to the northern part of the harbor. So I would take questions right now, but I was told to wait till the end of all the presentations. And so if you have anything, just keep it in mind and be up here. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate it. Very good. So next, I'd like to introduce Alex Nguyen. I think most of you know it. Alex has been a pleasure to work with, and he has been here with us now 4 or 5 years.
4.5.
4.5 years. It's one of the most frustrating part for us is we work with a city official and then they move on. Alex has been here for 4 years. He knows what we're facing, the problems we do. So please be nice. I don't want to chase him away.
It's the best introduction I've ever had. Okay, so I'm here to remind you, yes, I'm still here, but I'm here to remind you that you're part of a city called Oxnard. So, how many of you remember what was going on at City Hall 10, 15 years ago? Right, almost half of you. A little thing called FBI tape around the building, right? Okay. So the outcome of that was uncovering a lot of problematic issues at the organization. So the first thing I want to do is just to tell you we've made an almost full recovery from those days. And I want to give you just one metric that validates our stability today. in the last now 14 months, Standard & Poor's has upgraded our credit rating 5 times.
Yay.
Yes. Okay, now you still have a lot of work to do. Couple things though. What happens in the world around us impacts us, right? We're not a bubble. So supply chain delay, significant impacts, inflation, obviously, significant impacts. Whatever outrageous bills you paid to SoCal Gas in the last few months, so did we. We also buy gas and electricity, and we actually have to buy our own water. And their labor shortage is a huge deal for us. And again, it's not just us, right? It's the private sector, but also the public sector. Okay, so a few stats about what the city has been doing over the last year. So police, you know, people complain about speeding and parking and stuff, but I want to tell you some of the more significant stuff that police has to work on. So last year, they were involved in serious investigations of over 20 prominent drug dealers, narcotics dealers here in Oxnard. Wrote 76 warrants, investigated 2 human trafficking cases, which resulted in multiple arrests, and collaborated with the regional FBI office to investigate half a dozen narcotics trafficking and money laundering cases, and seized over $1 million worth of meth, over $900,000 worth of fentanyl, and 39 illegal firearms. Fire department last year received over 20,000 calls for service. In addition, they had 30,000 unit responses of all call types. There were 774 actual fires last year, 218 of which were structural fires. And over 13,000 medical incidents were responded to. Out of our public works department last year, we picked up, this is unfortunate, 18 months, sorry, over the last 18 months, 13,234 reports of illegal dumping we responded to. So of that, 2,141 tons of garbage were picked up. 937 refrigerators, 6,223 mattresses, and 766 homeless encampment cleanups. And I like to say that's good news, but it's also bad news. And most of that is from us. All right, we did host a bunch of neighborhood cleanup and bulky pickup drop-off days last year, 4 regional neighborhood events, 13 small neighborhood events, and 4 citywide free drop-off days at our processing center. Our graffiti action team last year cleared 33,398 graffiti tags. It's a lot. That's a lot of graffiti. In terms of homelessness, which is something that everyone is upset by, but remember, it's a statewide, it's actually a national crisis now, but in California and on the West Coast, it's the worst. And there's a lot of history to it. There are a lot of reasons to it, but a few good updates. Last year, we actually housed permanently 132 people. And that's actually the only solution to homelessness. Everything else is a Band-Aid. Our navigation center served 212 people. We were able to get 74 people out of homeless encampments and into housing. We cleared the Halico encampment again. That was done at least once, if not twice, before I arrived. And we just did it last year, and I'm pretty sure we'll have to do it again in a few years. The new street outreach program had 147 successful engagements with people, and we're finally in construction for the new shelter and permanent supportive housing facility in the middle of downtown next to City Hall. Our community services, cultural and community service, post-COVID, we reopened all of our neighborhood centers, youth centers, and senior centers. And we started the Arts Academy, the music program in the Colonia. And we're still struggling to find space for South Oxnard, but we expect to open this year. So a lot of work that we're able to do now, we're able to do because of Measure E. And I know Some, if not many of you opposed Measure E, and some of you supported it. So for those of you who supported Measure E, thank you. For those of you who didn't, you're welcome anyway. So prior to Measure E, there was just a lot of basic maintenance that we couldn't get to. And post Measure E, we're able to do it. And if you've been driving around Oxnard for last year, you've seen evidence of it, right? We have road work underway, some of it done, a lot of it happening, some of it coming, although now stalled due to the latest Aaron Starr lawsuit. Yeah, that's another story. You've seen tree trimming, you've seen the landscaping. So we're making a lot of progress. And then there's a lot of work on infrastructure that's not visible to us that's been going on as well. In community development, economic development, we're struggling there again with staffing. Our permitting is slow, but we're focusing on fixing it. Everyone always asks me about cannabis businesses. I don't know why, but so I have the info. So we have 2 stores open. Who here has been to one? Oh, 2 hands went up. I won't say who. 7 are under construction, 6 are in plan check, and 1 is pending their plan check approval. Yeah. Let me see. We achieved our state housing element certification. That's a big deal. We complied with the state law, unlike some other communities. And that's really important, A, just to come into compliance, but B, without that, it would have made us ineligible to apply for a series of state grants. So we need to keep that availability open to us. The city approved the polystyrene ordinance, basically ending the use of styrofoam. Someone's happy. Yeah. Yeah. In one of the public sessions, someone said, are we doing this too soon? And I said, no, they did this in Berkeley 30 years ago. We updated our safety element of our general plan, and the council finally approved our local climate action and adaptation plan, which also allows us to apply for state and federal grants. Our housing department is slated to build 494 housing units, affordable housing units, all by 2025. So those will be additional housing units, very important. You know, we had, not long ago, we had to pass a local rent ordinance program. The good news is it's temporary. So it will expire along with the state's rent control ordinance in law at the end of 2030. So let's hope we'll make some progress on the housing front by then. So those are my updates across the city, and I'll look forward to Q&A later in the second portion. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Vianey Lopez. She is with the Ventura County Board of Supervisors. She's one of our newer supervisors, and she's obviously been with the Oxnard City Council before. So she has plenty of experience and plenty of knowledge about Oxnard and Ventura County. So I'd just like to invite her up to talk a little bit about what's going on at the county level.
Hi, good morning, everyone, and thank you all so much for being here. And I want to thank Dave, Debbie, and Al for inviting me to join you this morning. So I know I'm a fairly new face to all of you, but as was mentioned, I did serve on the Oxnard City Council for almost 4 years until my appointment to the Board of Supervisors last October. And prior to that, I did serve on the Vianey Elementary School District Board for about 6 years. So I definitely have the connection to the coastal area in those 2 capacities. But today, as I join you as your county supervisor, and it's been quite a whirlwind of a few months coming on board and coming in the middle of so much action and activity on the Board of Supervisors. So one of the first actions that we took, or that I was able to take part in, was around the ARPA funds, the American Rescue Plan Act funds. And so the county received $157 million that went through a very public engagement process to get the feedback from the community and groups throughout the county on what the interests are and where the needs were to invest this money in. So in terms of what came to the 5th district that spread out a bit and probably more related here to the harbor and the beach community was a $1.3 million that was directed for a harbor water quality feasibility study. And I know some of you have been very active and involved in that task force in addressing the issues with the water here in the harbor. So there's definitely movement on that. And the city of Oxnard has been a leader in that as well, in hearing the needs and hearing the concerns of many of you who have been volunteering hundreds of hours to see this through. So I want to thank you all for being a part of that. Additionally, we directed $15 million for affordable housing construction and capital. And I mean, 15 million is going to go really, really fast. It's going to go really, really quick, considering the needs that we have throughout the county and especially in the city of Oxnard. There's the Lewis Road campus, which is adjacent to Cal State Channel Islands University, does fall under the 5th district. So if you don't believe it, the 5th district does spread out pretty far out into the Camarillo area. And so we're investing $15 million into that project, really focusing on mental health infrastructure and parks. I mean, making it a full complex of resources for our community. And then I'm surprised that the city manager didn't mention this, but the Oxnard Family Justice Center, which is the 2nd center being opened under the direction of our district attorney. The first one was opened at the beginning of 2020 in Ventura, and seeing the need of the families that are coming through the Justice Center who have gone through some very challenging circumstances related to domestic violence, sexual assault. I mean, a number of issues that can really set families back. And the Family Justice Center is a resource to help people get through that process, get the resources that they need. And so earlier this week, there was a 2-day workshop that took place here in Oxnard to work through some of those issues and what the interests of this Justice Center will be, which will be located in Oxnard. And so we invested through the ARPA funds. It was $5 million, but there is funds being contributed by the city, by the state and our federal government to make this center a successful place for our families in Oxnard. And then some of the other issues that we've been working on that we hear you. I mean, we hear you through my office. We hear you through the Board of Supervisors, is the concerns around the airport, the noise at the airport. So there is a Part 150 study that is going to be kicked off in March. So there will be a meeting on March 20th and March 21st. So we're doing a Part 150 study for both the Oxnard and Camarillo airports to look at what we can do better to address the issues and the concerns around the impacts of the noise and the noise from the airport. And then additionally, as our city manager also mentioned, one of the top issues around homelessness. So the county has initiated an assessment of the services that are being provided from throughout the county. So we got the buy-in from the city of Oxnard, the city of Ventura, and the city of Thousand Oaks to participate in this assessment to look at what is being done around homelessness and where the gaps are in the services, so that we can look at some strategies to make some improvements around that, specifically with the 3 cities participating in this assessment, giving direct strategies for them to work towards this. And then lastly, connected to homelessness, we received last year $8 million from our state senator, Monique Limon, towards the transformation of a county building located off of Rose Avenue, known as a Vanguard building. And this will also help to address some of the issues in meeting the needs of our unhoused population. So I will probably leave it at that, and I'm really thankful to have our harbor director, Michael Tripp, here, which I imagine a lot of the questions that will come up will be related to the harbor. So I want to thank you all for being here, for the opportunity to join you this morning. Thank you.
Next, I'd like to introduce Bert Perello. Congratulations, Bert, on his re-election. Bert has always been available to us. He's been very supportive. It is nice to have a city council person that understands our problems. So it's a pleasure to have Bert here this morning.
Good morning. It is a pleasure to be in this building. And I will share, as I sat on the seat, I apologize for being a little late. I'm looking out on the glare on the glass. Reminds me of the very first time I came to one of the meetings in this room, and it wasn't good. It's a lot has happened to be tremendously successful for the city of Oxnard. And one thing our city manager did not state. Mr. Clark is 100% right. We don't want to lose this man. To share with you, unanimously, the city council extended his contract for 5 more years. We intend to keep him. There are a lot of entities that want him. He's agreed to stay here. He has plans, and it has been a life-changing event for me personally to work with someone like this who's got a vision and he sticks to it. He brings in terrific people. One of them sitting right next to him, Mr. Michael Wolf. He makes changes where changes are needed. Back to the harbor. I can't really make out all the faces in there, but I know that there are people here that are the volunteers in the neighborhood. Mr. Clark and two people, Mr. Clark and Debbie Mitchell. There's a lot of other people that I'm gonna, not recall the names, but those 2 people are busting their tails for your organization. It's something that I hope all of you realize. I'll share with you. Thursday, I went to a neighborhood council meeting, my neighborhood council meeting. I got to see a little bit of the ugly side of a neighborhood council. I've never seen that down here. Never. I've heard complaints. You could even say bitches, but I've never seen what I saw at my neighborhood council about the haves and the have-nots, and they thought that theirs doesn't stink. That was ugly. I didn't like that. I didn't like it from everything that has happened in my neighborhood and the successes that they've had, that people can change. Mr. Nguyen addressed the homeless issue. That is something that I cannot change. I can work with other entities. Our city is working with other entities. There are a lot of homeless people. I work with the county. We're very lucky to have Vianey Lopez representing the county. The mental health issue of the homeless is something the city is not set up to address. That falls on the shoulders of the county. But I can tell by the gray hairs here, just like mine, you all have to remember when they shut down the mental health facilities in the state of California, the damage that did to our state is, you can't quantify it. It's tremendous because a lot of people have a problem with mental health on the street. And if they didn't, when they start on the street, it's very easy to fall into drugs or alcohol. And then you end up with some mental problems. The city of Oxnard and the seawalls issue, the city of Oxnard, the council unanimously agrees that this is an important part of the city of Oxnard. There's often a complaint about haves and have-nots, the rich and the poor. There isn't one council member that doesn't realize the impact of this area on our city. I like to use this analogy. If we're out in the water and the boat starts leaking, if we don't all start bailing, everybody gets wet, not just the rich and the poor, not just the haves and the have-nots. Everybody gets wet. And unless there's somebody with a lifeguard or a life raft, there's severe consequences. Your city of Oxnard, your council understands that. Your manager understands it. The commitments that have made to improve and work to address the seawall issues, they're solid. It's not an overnight process. We have had some change in staff. And as anything, there comes in your life an offer you can't refuse. We have lost some tremendous people. I can't hold it against them. They have lives, families, and responsibilities. But we've also been able to replace them with tremendous people. One of the issues right now in this country is there's a lot of people since the pandemic has had, they have not gone back to work. And that is significant. If our city manager, if you would like, he can turn you into the CBS News clip, which will show and explain about what's going on with the people that have left. And it's not the people at the bottom of the totem pole or the top of the totem pole. It's everybody. Very significant positions. And then you have on top of that, people are coming up to retirement ages. We need people to fill these spots with technical expertise, skills. We're not hiring the bottom of the barrel. Your city manager, Mr. Nguyen, will not accept somebody just to keep a seat warm. They got to be qualified to work for our city. I made a commitment that I would fight with you for the things that you need in this neighborhood. I'm very grateful that I was reelected. I'm extremely grateful that the residents of Oxnard voted to support Measure E. As Mr. Nguyen, 100% running the button. If we didn't have it, we'd be in problem. And I think it's clever how he says, those of you that didn't vote for it, you're welcome. That's a fact. That is a fact. One thing that was slightly addressed, we have individuals, which they have legal rights to do, continually sue the city of Oxnard. And they are tying up progress for everybody in the city of Oxnard. One of them is potentially tying up any more improvements on roads. And that's not what the discussion's about today, but I hope you'll pay attention. I came from a neighborhood that didn't have activity, South Bank. There was an issue in the neighborhood. All of a sudden, people got alarmed. This neighborhood, when there was an issue with the water, it was tremendous. And to the compliment of the people, every single person that lives in the neighborhood, Channel Islands Neighborhood Council, this organization, you stuck together. Do not stop sticking together. You can break a finger very easily, but it's very hard to break a fist. You've got to be together. And I'm not saying to come after City Hall or the Board of Supervisors or the state or the federal government, but I am saying you have to hold us. You have to hold me accountable. I don't do what you want. Call me out. And with that, later I'll answer questions if you have, but I appreciate being the opportunity to be here. And again, this is one neighborhood. And I know this is a Mandalay Bay, issue here today, but this is one area of the city of Oxnard. There are tremendous neighborhood councils that are jealous that you get the active participation of the residents that live here. You have something. I hope you realize it. Thank you.
And our last speaker for this public session is one of our own, Chuck Carter. He's not only a board member of the HOA, but he's part of the CINC Clean Water team. And I give them a lot of compliments. They have run into a lot of adversity and a lot of roadblocks, and they have persisted and been successful. So I'll give it to Chuck. Thanks, Bill.
Morning, my name is Chuck Carter. I'm the volunteer coordinator for the Channel Islands Harbor Clean Water Team. This picture tells the whole story. In the top upper left-hand corner, you can see the entrance to Channel Islands Harbor. The Edison Canal runs 4.5 miles north. And at the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the Mandalay Power Generating Station that pumped 1.5 billion gallons of water out the north end of the channel for over 60 years. That hydrology created a circulation that kept our harbor clean. In 2018, the power plant shut down. It was mandated by the State Water Board to close all once-through cooling power plants by 2020. When they shut down the power plant, they blocked the north end of the canal. And so the circulation that we had for 60 years now only has one exit to the ocean, and that's through the entrance of the harbor. We have, let me go back to this. The picture on the left-hand side, you can see all the agricultural fields that empty into Edison Canal, 2,400 acres of farm runoff. And that contains nutrients that cause algae growth, contains pesticides and some other chemicals. And that only has one way to get to the ocean now, through our harbor. So we created a Marine Advisory Committee back in 2018 because of this algae bloom that happened. Algae bloom caused the water to turn brown, smell bad, and we had a minor fish kill based on some perfect storm conditions. Our city manager, Alex Nguyen, came into a meeting like this 4 years ago, and people were not happy. It was really bad to have the water smelling bad and the fish dying. And so Alex hired Aquatic Bioassay Consulting to determine what caused the algae bloom. And they did a study of 30 different sites, did a water testing, sediment testing, and they came up with a conclusion that it was a combination of factors that caused the algae bloom. The nutrient runoff from the fields was one of the contributing factors. The lack of circulation was another contributing factor. And the presence of a toxic algae species called CIWHA was the third factor that caused this perfect storm, and we had a minor fish kill. So ABC recommended installing remote sensors, which we've done. The accomplishments of the clean water team in 2021 were to collect 12 months of samples following the state water board's swamp procedures to make sure that scientific data, the water board could evaluate whether the water was meeting state standards. The state water board agreed to pay for 12 months of laboratory processing that cost about $125,000. When that funding ran out, the ABC said we should continue to test to see if the water quality is getting better or continuing to degrade. The city council was able to obtain $1.3 million in ARPA funds to continue testing and go beyond that and to look for remediation solutions. We have demonstrated that the harbor water quality is not meeting state standards for pesticides, bacteria, metals, and toxicity. So that's what the water board wanted to know, wanted to have as evidence so that they can issue what they call TMDLs, total maximum daily load allocations to the dischargers into Edison Canal and the harbor. So the dischargers include the agricultural runoff and the stormwater systems. So there's the test results have been uploaded to the official CINC database, and the state water board is evaluating that. It's a long process. It's going to take 10 years to get any action. So we're moving on to working on remediation. This remote sensor is one of the things that was installed by the scientist, Aquatic Bioassay Consulting. It measures dissolved oxygen and chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is a proxy for algae. They also test the algae that they collect in the water to see if that CIWHA comes back. CIWHA is related to the red tide. So we see, last summer we had red tide. We had some sea lions die on the beach. Fortunately, it didn't come into the harbor. So, but that's a purpose of these sensors, is to monitor and have an early warning system if it looks like we're going to have another eutrophication situation. Eutrophication is low dissolved oxygen. It happens in most enclosed harbors, and we've been fortunate for 60 years to have that circulation and avoid it. Now that we don't have the circulation, we have to be very careful to avoid this low dissolved oxygen. This chart is available on the city website. The blue lines measure dissolved oxygen 24 hours a day from March through September. It shows that if the water, the dissolved oxygen drops below 5 parts per million. It's kind of hard to see on the right-hand side of the screen, but during the summer months, it drops below 5 parts per million during the night. Sun comes out and it goes back up. So we've been fortunate that it hasn't stayed below 5 parts per million and caused another fish kill. The chlorophyll is also listed on the bottom. The city has also implemented a surface algae removal. So you probably see the guy going around in his boat picking up trash. He's also picking up algae if he sees it floating on the surface. Back in 2002, the city and the county kind of knew that if the power plant shut down, we might have a problem. And they entered a memorandum of understanding that says if Channel Islands Harbor is degraded below state standards, they'll take action. First action is to do a new study. So the study that was done in 2004 talked about the hydrology in the harbor. So the new study was done by ABC back in early in 2019, and it determined that we have high residence time. So the residence time, how long the water takes to change in an area. When the pumps were running, it was 6 days in Seabridge. It's up to 25 days now. At the north end of the harbor, it was very stagnant, 90 days for that water to turn over. So it's, the more stagnant the water, the more growth we're going to have. And as Vianey mentioned, Supervisor Lopez, the county is ponied up 1.3 million to help with remediation to match the city's 1.3 million. So just north of us, there's McGrath Lake. And the orange outline there shows 1,200 acres agricultural runoff that empties into McGrath Lake. In 2011, the State Water Board issued a TMDL for nitrates, metals, pesticides, PCBs, and sediment toxicity. There's not much they can do to get the toxicity out of the sediment. There's some old pesticides, DDT, that just stays there forever. And they've switched to new pesticides that are more friendly, but McGrath Lake is toxic. We don't want to become another toxic area like that. We've been doing testing, and the chart on the left shows you a pesticide called Waterfront, which has a water quality objective of 0.6 nanograms per liter. We tested the last 5 samples in Edison Canal, averaged 18 nanograms, 30 times the standard. So there's a lot of pesticides in there. It's harmful to aquatic species. So some of these pollutants that are coming in here affect people, like at the bacteria level. You shouldn't go swimming for 3 days after it rains. But the water board is also concerned with the toxic species that is toxic to the fish. And the chart on the right shows you where the bacteria is coming from. And again, after a rainstorm, we have all of the sites that we tested exceeded the water quality objective, which was 104, most probable number. We can see 6,000 at the north end, 9,000 at the south end. At the south end is where Oxnard West drain comes in, and it is carrying runoff, urban runoff from 5th Street all the way down Ventura Avenue to Channel Islands Harbor, and then west for 3 miles directly into Fisherman's Wharf, into our harbor. And so, the bacteria is something that is pervasive. We can't get rid of it. We can try to minimize it, and we're working on those solutions. Kitty Beach, Hobie Beach have been listed as impaired for bacteria since 2007. They had 10 years to reduce the number. The county has spent hundreds of thousands of dollars working on ways to reduce the bacteria at that beach. They're still, and they made great improvement, but they're still exceeding the number of days that the TMDL calls for. So the county hired Southern California Coastal Research Project to do further studies and see where else could the bacteria come from. Well, we just saw where the bacteria is coming from. And that's going to help us figure out how to reduce the bacteria. We also tested for toxicity. This test is, we gather a couple of gallons of water, they put it in a controlled environment with 100 shrimp and measure it for 7 days. And at the end of the 7 days, how many of these shrimp survived and are they healthy? In October, we had a minor rain, and all the sites were 100% survivable. December 15th, 4 out of the 9 sites failed survivability. And we don't know why. It could be the bacteria, it could be the pesticides, it could be the low dissolved oxygen. But we need to continue to test to see if things are getting better or worse. During dry weather, bacteria levels measured at Doris Drain exceeded the state standard, even though there hadn't been any rain. But the runoff, as you can see in the photo in the middle, is the Doris Drain. It's like a river running into Edison Canal, and that's bringing in 4 times the standard of bacteria. Just downstream from that at 5th Street Drain, there was very little runoff, and the bacteria levels were within a normal range of 10 to 20. We also measure for nitrates, nutrients, the fertilizer that causes the growth of the algae. And we have certified tests from the laboratory, but John also has used this saltwater test to give us quick results and compare it. And one of the things, since we're doing monthly testing, we don't really know how it dissipates. And so he's been able to show that the nitrates dissipate pretty quickly. So at the darker the color, we're up in the 30 to 40 milligrams per liter. The state standard is 10 milligrams. So in the middle, in the main part of Mandalay Bay, we're under that, and Edison Canal are over that. So in 2021, the Marine Advisory Committee started a water quality task force. We got stakeholders from the city, the county, the Farm Bureau, the owners of the canal, the owners of the power plant, and all are working together to try to come up with a remediation solution. So we agree that we've got a problem. We know we have to fix it, and we know it's going to cost a lot of money. So these stakeholders are working together. We've had several meetings. The Farm Bureau has been very receptive in recommending ways that they can reduce the runoff. And that's a big improvement with the new Maureen McGuire, who's a new CEO. We have listed a number of remediation possibilities. And I won't go through them at this point. Where we're at right now is trying to get engineering studies to evaluate which of these things will work and what are too expensive or have too many obstacles. So it's again, it's a long process, and I hope we all continue to work together and try to come up with a remediation. So I'll turn it back over to Bill for questions.
And I just want to say Chuck's group is all volunteers, and he could certainly use more volunteers. So if you have some time and you're interested in water quality, please talk to Chuck. So we're going to go ahead and open this up to question and answers. Anything other than seawalls. Seawalls we'll address later, but if you have other questions, we'll do that. So I'm going to steal the first two questions. So Alex, on that point, and we talked about the power plant, has the new owner made any suggestions or ideas what they may do with that?
Yes. Yes, they have.
Can you enlighten us?
Can I take a quick opportunity to point something out, because I don't believe the timeline's obvious. When Supervisor Lopez was our city council member, she voted to fund the harbor water quality for $1.3 million. But then when she joined the county, she just doubled it.
Yeah.
I just want to make it clear. She also, by the way, on the city council voted to support Councilmember Perello's request to have the city fund the seawalls going forward with you. So thank you. So with the Mandalay power plant, they do have ideas, but they've got to do a lot of testing, sea level rise studies and all that to get it by the Coastal Commission before they do anything else.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And Michael's Tripp. Is there anywhere on the website that we could put like a timeline for some of these developments? Like when we might think, the restaurant will be ready, the hotel will be ready. Just, we get so many questions about that. And if I could just send someone there or at least have an idea, sure, that'd be helpful.
Yeah, sure. I mean, we do have basic information about the projects, but it would be easy enough for us to just, update them once a month or so to let where they're at.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, so I'd like to open it to questions. Hands up. Yeah.
Question for Michael Tripp, the director of the Channel Islands Harbor. As you know, a lot of people walk in this area around the harbor, and on the west side of the harbor, there's no public restrooms, and the county owns a building which they shut down public access to when the city stopped paying for some of the maintenance oversight on that. When will the county reopen those restrooms to the public?
Oh, there are two on the west side of the harbor. There are two public restrooms on that side. There's one at Marine Emporium Landing, and there's another public restroom that, it's been open every time I've been there. I think the restroom that you're referring to is the one for our commercial fishing marina, which that is a restroom, specifically for the users of that marina. And so we do open it up as an overflow when the farmers market's here, but generally speaking, it is for the commercial fishermen. So we don't want to put too much pressure on that restroom throughout the week, because it's really meant for them. And so if you're wondering, when are we going to do some improvements to restrooms in general? right now, we are in talks with a cell phone company who's interested in putting another cell phone tower at some point in the harbor. I mean, we could use it. You have pretty bad reception out here. And what we're negotiating with them is to build or rebuild another restroom on that side of the harbor.
According to the Ventura Star article, that is it was a public restroom that was open.
Sure, the question was whether opening more public restrooms on this side of the harbor. There's currently 2 available, correct? And I assume with the opening of the whale's tail in that there'll be more public restrooms available. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to express disappointment with the city of Oxnard. I know that revenue is a priority and that they've chosen to get revenue through the legalization of cannabis stores. But I'm not sure about the one on Oxnard Shores, the one adjacent to Woolley and Harbor Boulevard there, but I believe there's a pot store scheduled, been approved to go in there. I would like to see, I do have a problem with pot stores in general, but I understand that the city is looking for revenue, but I would definitely like to see them stay out of our neighborhoods. I don't believe that cannabis stores are a good idea around neighborhoods with children and families. If they want to have them somewhere in a location that is away from residential areas, I think that's a much better solution. And to keep the cannabis away from kids is really my most important focus. And I don't think that what the city of Oxnard has done in allowing this is good at all for the community.
How does the city decide locations as far as that?
First of all, the city didn't legalize cannabis, California voters did. And the prior city council actually took a very slow approach. It took them over 4 years to determine cannabis policy. And there was an extensive public process to designate which zones retailers would be allowed in. So that, again, that took nearly 4 years. So it went through a public process.
Next question. Yes, Ray.
A question for Chuck. The Hemlock drain, we've got a lot of water coming out of it. Any comments on how it's affecting our water quality?
So a question on the Hemlock drain and the Channel Islands drain.
So the city stormwater team is working on reinstalling some filtration on Oxnard West Drain, the one that runs down Channel Islands Boulevard. They have a preliminary design to divert that water into the golf course at the Navy, run it through a settling pond, let it filter through the ground, and then pump the cleaner water back into the harbor. So it's a big project. It's at the very beginning stages. It's got a lot of complexities because it involves the city of Oxnard, Fort Wainimi, the Navy base, and Ventura County Watershed Protection District. So it's in the process. They're working on ways to filter water, and the idea of running it through a settling pond through the ground to naturally filter the water and pump the clean water back into the harbor is in the works.
But the Hemlock, there's nothing on the Hemlock one.
Nothing on Hemlock at this point, but it's the same type of problem. So as those drains bring in trash and bacteria, you know, we've seen that they are just as toxic as ag runoff. So it's all part of the stormwater capture project. City of Oxnard has a capital improvement project to install, I think, 140 full capture devices over the next year. So the city is aware of it, the county is aware of it, and they're working on a Ventura County-wide stormwater capture project.
Very good, thanks. Questions in the back there?
Yeah, I like water protection issue, but I'm just saying, Waterfront has been here many years, and we never have a lot of ideas that maybe haven't been brought forth. There's with the muffles that are cheaper to filter, there's cleaning up at 15 gallons of water and it's single day. This is just with simple muffles. Then we could possibly do this while we're spending on testing, but maybe we can start to implement things to try to clean while the years of testing goes on. He had some ideas with the elimination and muffle filtration system of the simple muffle. used throughout our harbor. There is some current, organizations that are doing this currently. And, that is Revive Our Goals, you know, the flagship, organization in the muscle, reef restoration trust. So it's already been proven to do, the filtration, and it wouldn't cost a lot of money, and you could possibly do that. That's your expensive.
Yeah, George, I'd encourage you to talk with Chuck. I mean, those are great ideas. So, yeah, I think that'd be a good contact for the two of you. So that's really the driving force, yeah.
Yeah, use a natural way of filtering it.
Yeah, those are great ideas. Mike in the back.
This actually goes to both city and county. We live on the other side of Manalay. I know the county doesn't want to control that anymore, which I'm not concerned about West Sea Bridge. County used to control it since the beginning. Then they backed off. But if it's the city's responsibility, there's a lot of boats that go through which affect their seawalls. They go to fast, they're gonna run over paddle boarders. We see a lot of incidents. I don't know who's responsible, but that's wild land out there. Water skiers, everything. So,
Yeah.
you know, somebody should take responsibility, whether it's city or county, to join effort, but it's very dangerous over there for a lot of people.
Yeah, once they go under the bridge, it's a wild west.
Right.
And it did used to, like a while when you guys first used it.
Right. So I know that we talked about that a little bit, staff, but certainly I'd like to open the dialogue and talk more about that.
Sure, and if the question is the jurisdiction, where does it start, where does it stop? Basically, south of Channel Island Bridge is, and the waterways are controlled by the county, and north of them, they're controlled by the city.
So that's an issue we're aware of, and we'll hopefully make some progress over the next year. A question?
Few years back, with the Harbor Patrol patrolling north of the bridge, I believe there was a proposal to charge residents north of the bridge an ungodly monthly fee that didn't wasn't relevant to the times that they actually patrolled and turned around and did nothing. I know that was proposed. I've got one other thing with the water quality. I understand you're talking about the fish dying and everything else. But has there been any studies done with the residents living on the water to see if there's any issues with the residents there? To see if there's any damage, you know, I know there's a lot of older people, if there's ever been any like cancer reports or anything else due to the water issue.
I'll give that to Chuck, but I don't believe that there is. Although I'll tell you, if you live in Ventura County, you have a higher chance of cancer. A lot of that's just associated with farming and pesticide.
Yeah, so what we're currently testing for is bacteria and the pesticides. The pesticides that they're currently using are not harmful to humans, according to the EPA. But they are toxic to aquatic species. So the water board's interested in that. As far as the cancer causing elements that are in the harbor, we're not currently testing that.
Regards to Harbor Patrol, I'll give you a brief synopsis of the history I remember. The county basically gave the city the harbor. The county maintained control of some of the lots. Harbor Patrol, at that point, the county offered to continue to patrol our area at no charge. There was a 50-year agreement. That 50-year agreement came to an end. When it came to the end, the previous harbor director made a proposal to Seabridge and Westport, who at that time were paying for it. We still had it for free. It was for like $1.7 million to monitor that. Seabridge, Westport, and we all said that's not something we're willing to pay for at this point. Obviously, this has become a problem. So if we don't have Harbor Patrol that covers the entire harbor, that's one thing, but we do need to have some sort of patrol that covers this main harbor because the number of boats and other things going too fast has gotten out of control. So that's just brief history. Any other questions? Yes, Jim.
Yeah, I want to applaud the city for making a lot of progress in the environmental areas, styrofoam and so forth. My question is, have you considered, like many other municipalities have, restricting the use of gas-powered leaf blowers?
I have certainly thought about that, but we're just not there yet in terms of our capacity to do that work.
Yeah, it's a big lift.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the question was, is the city going to ban gas-powered leaf blowers? And at this point, not yet. Question, yes.
I live at the end of a channel. And 1 or 2 days a week, there'll be a lot of landscape clippings and dirt floating on the water. I haven't ever seen anything that has advised landscapers that they're supposed to be sweeping up rather than blowing the trash and clippings into the channel. Is there anybody that advises the landscaper?
Is there a way to set up an ordinance on that? Or
Yeah, hi, Michael. It's already a rule. So if it's a subject of our landscapers that are working through our assessment district, then we'll make sure we get that notice to them. We certainly can work with the HOA and our community development department about other kinds of notifications.
if it's another landscaper that you see doing it, let us know. We'll pass that on.
Well, that's the problem. I mean, I have little yellow flowers floating back there, so I kind of know maybe what property owner, but
You can pass that on to us anonymously, and we'll pass it on. Question in the back, Debbie.
Along that line, I believe it's both. It's the city landscapers that do the green belts, but they're not blowing things into the channel, they're blowing things into the street. And then then that gets washed into the channel. So when we get rain or when, then a sprinkler blows up or something, a whole flood of stuff goes out or it blows. And that's what I've seen more is people blowing things just off someplace else and not sweeping it up. So we could all tell our own gardeners and our own house, cleaners and whatever, and ourselves to sweep it up, don't sweep it in the street. And if the city could also do something along that line, that would be great.
Excellent. Next question. Yes.
Kind of akin to what we've been talking about. I see code compliance trucks maybe once a month. And they're always going really fast, so nobody will try to talk to them. Yeah. There's been absolutely no oversight on what people do in their own house or extending to the parking area where they have 8 cars and so forth. So it just and it seems like there's a problem with building codes. I mean, people are building decks out into the harbor. They've got little extra houses where the dock used to be. I just kind of think that that's being allowed and really shouldn't be.
Yeah, so I would certainly say you can call code, you can call us and we'll work with you to call code. But for the most part, when we've called code, they're usually fairly responsive. They're not going out there maybe and looking for it, but if you bring it up, they will. And if you guys know that 311 app, it does work pretty well. So if you see something on that and you use the 311 app, they're usually pretty responsive about addressing that. Question.
I've used that 311 app twice.
Yeah.
And both times, within a couple of weeks, they address it.
Yes. So I would encourage you to use that 311 app. It gives you something, that you can go back to and go, look, this is when it was dated and noted.
Right.
So, question behind, the 2 right there. Go ahead. Either one of you. Yeah.
Okay, couple of things for the harbor director about, and I realize in the scheme of things, these are probably pretty small problems, but for the enjoyment of the harbor for residents who we enjoy our electric boating and so forth. Talking about guest docks and so forth, and there were 3 areas that, one, I noticed at Mrs. Olson's, there were 2 kind of, little boards that were using that guest dock in front of Mrs. Olson. I was told, I called the harbor patrol and they said, we can't touch it. We don't regulate that dock. It's in the harbor. But it belongs to the development, and is that accurate?
That is accurate. That specific dock, it's controlled by the lessee who runs that little shopping center over there. But
get a hold of.
he was aware of it too. They weren't there, because he wanted them there. They were people that just showed up.
Has he got any recourse to him? I mean, once he says, I don't want you there, what can he do?
You can have the police move them. I mean, they aren't there anymore, correct?
There's still one there.
Okay, I thought you needed them out of there. Okay.
Second, yes, doc, situation is, I think at the last meetings, one of these meetings, the new Hyatt Hotel, they're gonna have restaurants there, I understand, but so far, nobody's addressed that there's gonna be a guest dock there. I think you or somebody might have mentioned that that would have to be the leasing for the docks out, and then they're two separate entities. So what's going to be the motivation and who's going to address that with the leasing for the docks to say, hey, we want you to incorporate some guest docks in this new set of docks you're putting in? Is that being addressed at all, or?
Yes, and you're correct. They're two completely separate entities. And so the hotel doesn't have any control over what docks go there. Basically, there's an organization that runs all those docks called Almar. And so what we have to do is convince them that it would be to their benefit to have a dock that they're not necessarily making any money off of, And so it's something that we can work on in negotiations, and we are in negotiations with them right now to redevelop all those docks. But it is a little bit of a hard sell. So certainly, if the hotel was there, we would negotiate with them with that. If the hotel was in control of the water area there, we would have negotiated that with them from the start.
Geez, I would think the city would have some leverage if
Yeah.
you're allowing them to put new docks in there.
Yeah, we are in negotiations with them, and so it's something along with many other things that we can work on.
And last, just over at the Fisherman Wharf development, are there going to be guest docks at that new development?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, the workshops, that was one of the things that actually came up quite a lot. And well, we haven't even started negotiating with the Carl's group yet, but we see, a great opportunity there to have guest docks, to have, a situation like you have right now where you can go out, and rent a boat, or, possibly even like, a water bus or a water taxi stop there. That's one of the things moving forward when we have a new development that comes in. I do want to have the, water side interaction, because I think the way we have it right now, we're not getting it here now. Where you can take your little boat, go up there and, go enjoy a restaurant like they did in the past.
Yes.
Part of the issue about Carl's and any development of the Fisherman's Wharf is for myself and for, I think, some others, is the traffic problems that are going to accompany all of that. But specifically, since we're talking about code compliance, I live right underneath this bridge, and one of the biggest problems we have is noise, and the noise is from cars and motorcycles that do not have legal muffler systems on them, and they are very obtrusive to our quality of life here. And especially on Saturdays, Friday nights, Saturday nights, coming out of the harbor area, going over the bridge, etc. I'm wondering if there any way that the city can enforce these codes, is the noise, muffler codes that people are obviously in violation of. I mean, some of these cars are uncorked getters that are driving through the streets, and this can't affect just us. This has to affect the whole city. Is there any way the police department can better police these items for us for better quality of life?
Yes, we can. I'll be honest with you, it's not the highest priority for police, but they can do focused enforcement, so I'll take a note of that.
Thank you.
Right.
I live on Hemlock in Victoria, and there's been a problem with people getting hit by cars crossing Victoria.
Could you speak up, please, a little bit?
Well, I can I get a microphone?
Sure, right here.
So I mean, I could speak forward or backwards, but it's.
Yeah,
go one way or the other.
Okay, I live on Hemlock in Victoria, and there have been problems with people crossing Victoria, getting struck by cars. It always happens on a Friday night or a Saturday night. My wife went out to one of them and watched him die. There's another one that he went off alive, but the car looked like it had hit another car. I mean, bad. So I'm wondering if there's something that could be done to make it more visible when people are crossing that street at night, because we get a lot of them that cross and go over the Sea Bridge to walk, and they're getting hit.
Yes. Yeah, that's certainly something that our transportation team could look at, so we can talk after the meeting and get that information over to our transportation team. There's several ways to enhance crosswalks, whether that's through striping or signage or lighting, so yeah, opportunities abound. Do that.
Getting back to the building permit process, we all know it's extraordinarily longer than anybody would like, but I believe in like November, December 2020, the city council passed Building Permit Process Reduction Act. That was never implemented. I've heard they're trying to implement it in the next few days. I want to know two questions. Is it going to be implemented? Building permits, I heard from 1 to 2 days that the contractors will stand by the building spec. And then is that going to be an ongoing process?
The question is regarding speeding up permits.
So specifically, that wasn't a city council ordinance, that was actually a voter approved ordinance from Mr. Aaron Starr, and it's essentially self-certification.
Right.
And I want to be clear that we're in compliance, so it's not just starting, it's what you're referring to is the next set of training courses. So we've started it, not many people are interested because they understand when they go through it that they've got to be insured. And they have to get engineers who are willing to self-certify. So we just, all I can say is we're providing the program, but be careful what you wish for.
Well, then, okay, but is there any other discussions in place on reducing that? I mean, a lot of our clients who sell houses do, it's 6 months minimum, closer to 10 to 12 months for a fairly decent permit, but that's just insane.
You're right, and we do take responsibility for that. We are slow. We are working to speed it up. There are lots of reasons why we're slow. We don't like it, but we are working to speed it up. So I don't disagree with that completely.
Well, just to add to that, as a contractor, people in our area are asking me to do a job for them, and I tell them it takes 4 to 8 months to get a permit, and they want me to do it without a. I won't do it without a permit. So guess what happens? Anyone know?
Somebody
They go
else, yeah.
some little schlock with a pickup and a flip phone and hire him with no insurance, and they do a terrible job, and now they're putting people at risk. So the building and safety is really failing in this arena. So it is another safety thing for individuals that are hiring these guys that will work without a permit, or they'll tell you you don't need a permit. Well, you should check with the city. They have a very clear on their website when you need a permit. And if you don't get a permit, you're going to hire someone that is less than qualified to do it. And as a result, you're going to get an inferior project and potentially a hazardous home. Sorry.
No, but you're correct, sir. I agree with you. I don't argue with that. We are working on it. You're correct.
Question, Tom.
Less of a question, more of just a comment and an observation. A lot of voters and in reference to public docks going to restaurants. It sounds wonderful, sounds magical, if not the real world, folks. Right now, if you take your Duffy, you can pull up to Mrs. Olson, Toppers, and up by that. Yep, there's always space. The boats don't go to the restaurants. It's that you may on occasion, and it sounds great. We owned a restaurant on the water. Once, maybe twice, we'd have boats on a weekend come by. So my point is, to the restaurants, it's insignificant what boat traffic brings to them as a business. To the dock owner, it's real estate they're having to give up for public use. That costs them a lot of money for very occasional use. I'm not saying it's not a fun thing to do. I, as a boater, love pulling up to a restaurant, but I can always pull up to a restaurant because there aren't other boats there. So the boat traffic's not the significant portion to the businesses on the land. Plus, you also have a liability issue. Who's going to pay for the insurance for a transient boat to go on and off the dock there? So that's what the issues are. And the comment was made is absolutely right. The marinas and the boat docks are different owners and operators than the land-based people. so they don't have the same need either as well. So, I'm not opposed, like I said, I love the idea of pulling up to a public dock to go to a restaurant. I love the idea, but it's not a real world, practical aspect in most cases with this.
Thanks, Tom. Question here.
Comment to that.
Okay, come.
If you guys do put in public docks, you gotta put restrictions on the size of the boat. Cause I pulled up to guest dock and there's a 30-foot coastal cruiser and I have no room, even on a dinghy, can't even pull up to the dock. So please consider if you do put something in, restrictions on what actually can get put on a guest dock.
Question. Yeah.
Hi, one thing, Channel Islands Boulevard, nobody enforces the speed limits or the noise abatement on that street ever. And people know it and they get their motorcycles and they get their cars and they race down that street and it is so dangerous. And it's not that there aren't regulations, nobody enforces them. And it's only gonna get worse when there's more traffic at the corner at Victoria and people are gonna race even faster to get through that signal. Because it takes forever to get to that signal now, wait till there's 100 more cars every time. It's ridiculous. If you live close to it, it's very, very dangerous and it's just not being enforced.
Good. I think Alex has got that. Good. Question.
Hi, my name's Rita French. I'm having major problems with the maintenance of the landscaping. I live right on Channel Islands, West Channel Islands Boulevard on the frontage road. And on New Year's Eve, a huge tree almost fell right on my car. And a lot of the trees look like they're about to fall over. I did talk to Eric Story about this. And he did, have maintenance crew come out, and they cut down the tree. But then I had problems with my roof because all the debris from the woodchucker went into my downspout. And then I was having problems with the rain. I hope you all can hear me with my roof. So I was taking buckets out from I still have to fix the inside of my garage because of that. So I'm having major problems with those trees. They look like they're about to fall down on our houses. On the channel, it's just really scary and dangerous. I'm scared to even park my car along there. And I live right there, 4141 West Channel Islands Boulevard. I need your help. This is dangerous.
That's good. And we'll have you talk to Mike. If you can talk to Mike at the end of the night or end of the meeting.
Thank you.
You'll go through that. Or go ahead.
I'd like to address it because we have a city here. I take care of the landscaping in the area. I've been trying to get Eric for 6 months now. I have bids. And I've walked it with him. The guy, Lalo is a great guy, the foreman here. But to even get the bid, I get issues. Well, we got contracts coming up. Oh, contracts. We got a new guy, but contracts aren't signed. I go, can we at least get, because we got nesting season. That's one of our big problems. Exactly what she says is a big issue. We did do $6,000-7,000 worth of tree earlier this year. There's a couple other real bad ones we need to do. When they do fall, the 311 app, they do respond immediately to that, to do that. But I'm having a very, very difficult time getting the bids I need. And it falls back onto my shoulders. So if you guys.
Yeah, received. So myself and actually Mr. Hallett, who's right behind you, Steve Hallett, where Eric works for Steve. So he and I will talk and we'll make sure we get these addressed. Certainly the maintenance of the trees is a big issue. The good news is, like you said, we do have a new contract available to do tree trimming and we'll start, and it's already started actually. But certainly, yes, understood the issue.
Okay, a couple more questions and then we're going to move on to the next part of the meeting. So we've got 2 people here. Let's finish with those. Go ahead.
2 trees have fallen and almost hit my son's car, and one day he was actually in the car. And one was about a month ago, and one was 60 days ago, a smaller tree. These are large trees right on Channel Island. Someone didn't have to recently down the valley or whatnot, but these trees are uprooting on Channel Island Boulevard, and it's not only endangering people, but other people's cars.
Where does Port Wainimi take over on that? Where's Port Wainimi? Okay, but 311. Do the 311 anytime you see a tree. At least they know and they can get going on it.
Yeah, but 2 have fallen in a month or so. So there's more trees that are probably going to fall.
Okay, Judy, we're going to finish with you.
Yeah. First of all, Alex, I have to commend you, and, from many of us who were here many, many years ago, this was a horrendous situation in terms of what was happening. And you came and you said, I'm here to stay, and this is great proof of good people doing good things, so. We love the other dimension about the lack of labor shortage, and that's obviously going on all over the city, state, government, etc. Maybe it would be helpful, because you've got this great audience here of what is it specifically that you're looking for in terms of skills, other than Bert, as you said, obviously technical people. So if there's some way that people could refer people that know to do a matchup of people that are looking for jobs with the needs for it. So you align the talent pool with what you need. Obviously, maybe not here, but it would be great if we could help you in any way to match that up.
Thank you for that. So we post all of our available jobs on, not only on the city's website, but in all the trades and LinkedIn and everything. So the jobs that are out there are well known. In addition to the technical skills, whether it's engineers or planners or plan check people, what I really want are people who actually want to perform public service. In an organization of over 1,200 employees, we actually have a budget for 1,400, but we have right now about 1,200 people, and obviously not everyone enters city government because they believe in public service, but those are the people I actually really want. So to me, that's the most important trait.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to thank Supervisor Lopez and Harbor Director Mr. Tripp for being here. Bert, I assume you're going to stay a little bit for this.
By a show of hands, can you please raise your hand if you are hooked up on 311? Okay, it should be unanimous. If you don't know how to do it, ask. We can get you on there.
Yes.
It's one of the best things the city has to help you.
Good, excellent. So thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate it. So next, I'm going to call up Alex and Michael Wolf. We're going to talk a little bit seawalls.
Good morning, welcome